here's what I think. I think we should have a law at the federal level that would say after 15 weeks, no abortion on demand, except in cases of rape, incest, to save the life of the mother. And that should be where America's at. And what would that mean if we adopted that position? The next chart. Where are the chart people? If we adopted my bill, our bill, we would be in the mainstream of most everybody else in the world. I think there are 47 of the 50 European countries have a ban on abortion from 12 to 15 weeks. And I picked 15 weeks, which is a little longer than Belgium, Germany, and Spain, longer than France, Denmark, and Norway. Now, why did I do that? Because I feel comfortable at 15 weeks, the science tells us that the nerve endings are developed to the point that the unborn child feels pain. So the theory of the case here is not to be like Europe so much, is to have a standard in America that would prohibit abortions during the birthing process at a stage where it's pretty clear from the science and most of the world this should be a no-go unless there's some extraordinary reason. So we will be introducing this bill as of like right now. People will join. I hope it will be bipartisan, and we will have a debate, if we're allowed to bring it up, as to why we're doing what we're doing. Abortion is a contentious issue. Post-Dobbs, America's got to make some decisions. And the first thing I would say about the Dobbs decision is that abortion's not banned in America. It's left up to elected officials in America to define the issue. You have states have the ability to do it at the state level, and we have the ability in Washington to speak on this issue if we choose. I have chosen to speak. I have chosen to craft legislation that I think is eminently reasonable in the eyes of the world, and I hope the American people. At 15 weeks, pretty much strong majority of Americans believe abortion should be the exception, not the rule.
Here we've got Lindsey Graham essentially trying to screw over his own party in November by announcing his proposal for a new bill, a national abortion ban after 15 weeks. Because the way you know Republicans really meant it when they said they wanted this decision to be left up to the states is because they've now introduced legislation where abortion is banned at the federal level. And by the way, when I say Republicans, I quite literally mean Lindsey Graham, because here he is just last month claiming that he wants this decision to be left up to the states.
The point I'm trying to make is I've been consistent. I think states should decide the issue of marriage, and states should decide the issue of abortion.
I've been consistent, he says, as it takes him exactly 5 weeks to go from abortion being a state's issue to abortion being an issue that Republicans can strip away at the federal level. Because consistency. And because that hypocrisy is so clear, Graham was asked point blank how he squares his contradictory positions.
On May 3rd, after the initial Dobbs opinion was leaked, you stated that the repeal of Roe v. Wade would mean that every state will decide if abortion is legal and on what terms. And you said that that was the most constitutionally sound way of dealing with the issue. And here you are introducing a nationwide 15-week limit. I'm wondering how you square those two statements.
Pretty easy. After they introduced the bill to define who they are, I thought it'd be nice to introduce a bill to define who we are. So the Democrats wanted a national standard, and their standard was basically abortion up to the time of birth, putting you in the Iran-Syria club. So now we're going to talk about what the nation should be like. I've introduced this bill, and I'm ready to debate it and vote on it.
So because Democrats have held an actual consistent position that women should have the freedom to choose how they handle their bodies and their healthcare decisions, a position that has never changed, somehow Lindsey Graham took that to mean that his entire position should change and that abortion should go from a state issue to a federal issue. Again, Democrats have never changed here. Their position was always that women should have the right to choose. Graham points to this as if it's some new revelation that Democrats continue to be pro-choice. So the only person moving the goalposts here is Lindsey Graham. Now, Graham's bill would have exceptions for rape, incest, and the life of the mother, but he's asked what would happen if the pregnancy was non-viable after 15 weeks, a situation for which there is no exception in Graham's bill. Here's what he says.
What would you say to somebody like me who found out that their son had an anomaly that would make him incompatible in life in 16 weeks? I had regular appointments, I did everything right, and at 16 weeks we found out that our son would likely not live. When he was born, he lived for 8 days. He bled from every orifice of his body, but we were allowed to make that choice for him. You would be robbing that choice from those women? What do you say to someone like me?
Here's what I would say. The world pretty much has spoken on this issue. The developed world has said at this stage into the pregnancy, the child feels pain, and we're saying we're going to join the rest of the world and not be like Iran. As to your particular case, there'll be exceptions for life of the mother and rape and incest.
There are no exceptions in this bill.
Well, ma'am, there were 55,000 abortions after the 15-week period. And I think we're resolved to get America back in line with the rest of the world.
In other words, Graham has no answer for what would happen if a fetus is, quote, non-compatible with life after 15 weeks. He'd make a woman carry a non-viable fetus for another 35 weeks to term. And mind you, Lindsey Graham, the person crafting national legislation stripping you of your reproductive rights, has no uterus, has no children, has no significant other, has no family, but he's perfectly content to tell you how and when you should have yours. For a party that prides itself on small government, this is about as big, dangerous, and overbearing a government as you could possibly find. And by the way, Americans can see that. They have been crystal clear about their view on the GOP's position on abortion restrictions. In the 5 special elections since the Dobbs decision, Democrats have overperformed their 2020 partisan lean by 11 points. 11 points. Even if you don't count the massive 18-point swing from flipping Alaska's House seat, Democrats are still averaging a 9.5-point swing to the left. In a midterm cycle where traditionally Republicans should trounce the Democrats. That's what happens in midterm cycles to the party in power. Instead, Republicans have been so hell-bent on stripping people of their rights, and even while Americans are broadcasting just how disgusted they are, still Republicans are charging forward. That is the consequence of a party that has zero interest in being held accountable to the people they're supposed to serve. Republicans could quite literally not care less about what Americans think. They care solely about enacting a fascist, extremist agenda that serves their own theocratic worldview. Now, I know you're probably thinking, why would Lindsey Graham do this? Why introduce a bill restricting abortion, a position that has killed the GOP in every special election since the Dobbs decision was handed down, with midterms fewer than 2 months away? Graham likely thinks that a 15-week ban is more mainstream, and so if he can co-opt the narrative from those more extremist Republicans who are calling for an outright abortion ban, that'll somehow help the GOP. Only 2 things here. First, Americans don't want any abortion ban. They've made that clear. This is not a negotiation that we're looking to have. Republicans love to propose the most extreme thing in the world, in this case an outright ban on abortion, and then take 2 baby steps backwards and think that that looks like they're being engaged in a reasonable negotiation. How about this for a negotiation? Come November, we elect the people who will protect reproductive rights and vote out the ones who are putting those rights on the chopping block. That sounds like a reasonable negotiation to me. And the second thing, enacting a 15-week abortion ban doesn't mean that the matter will be settled. We all know that the very next move will be a 6-week abortion ban or just an outright abortion ban. We're not stupid. We've seen this process play out before. It's quite literally already happening in the states. Republicans are never satisfied with stripping away just some rights. They will always, always, always move the goalposts. And if they're successful at banning abortion, they'll move on to other privacy rights. They'll undermine same-sex marriage and interracial marriage and contraception. I don't know how many ways I can say this. Extremists are never satisfied and will always come for more of your rights. The only way to stop them is to strip them of their power. It's not to defer to the moderate Republicans, because Lindsey Graham is considered a moderate Republican, and that guy just introduced a national 15-week abortion ban. Again, the only way to stop this forward march against your rights is to take the GOP's power away. Period. So look, for those Republican voters out there, for those independents out there, you may think the GOP is still the party of fiscal responsibility or limited government. It's not. They are outright extremists. If they take power, Americans will lose their right to an abortion. Rape victims will have to carry their rapist babies to term. Incest victims will have to give birth to their own brothers or sisters. Women will die being denied abortions with ectopic pregnancies. This isn't me being hysterical. This is me quite literally repeating what they are broadcasting in public. The simple fact is that these people are not moderate, and no 11th hour attempt by Lindsey Graham to strip you of only slightly less of your bodily autonomy is going to change that. So if you believe that Americans should have the freedom to choose what they do with their own bodies, then make sure your voice is heard in just a few weeks at the ballot box. Before you go, couple things. First, if you want to support my work, the best way is to subscribe to this channel. The subscribe button is right here on the screen. And second, if you want to see and hear more from me, check out my website, briantylercohen.com. That way you can get links to my podcast, merchandise, ways to donate to voting rights organizations, and so much more. The thumbnail is also right here on the screen, so go check it out. And as always, thank you so much for watching.